You have to draw a line in the sand. You have to build some boundaries.
Maybe I'm not the right one for him.
I'm to a point where I don't want to try anymore.
You are hurting yourself. This is something we see regularly.
What is someone in your life fighting for? And how can you be there for them?
Well, we have some questions that, this isn't one specific question that someone has sent in, but this is a theme that we're beginning to see a lot of people asking. A lot of people, even in the way that they are searching for answers on the internet, this question keeps coming up a lot. And it has to do with women who are not happy with their marriage, but specifically women who are looking for how they can love their husband again because they have lost respect for their husband. They no longer feel attraction, love, whatever that might look like for their husband. So when there's a woman, specifically a wife, who's in that state, maybe it's that her husband's not helping out around the house, she feels like everything's on her, she's lost respect for him, or maybe it's because her husband isn't stepping up in other ways, either with his job, or there's something that he is doing or hasn't done that has led to her to lose respect for her husband. What is something she can do to get that feeling of respect back for him?
Well, when we talk about respect, it's a major deal. Gottman pointed out, and when he was doing a literature review in the book The Marriage Clinic many years ago, that the three most common reasons that lead a person to want out of a marriage would be either, I don't feel like you love me, or I don't feel like you like me, or I don't feel that you respect me. So respect's a big deal. I mean, it's extremely important. Now, typically, though, we have to ask the question, what is it that has happened that has lessened, or maybe even done away with, the respect that you feel for your husband? Now, could it be that he is not meeting some kind of expectation that you have? Like, for example, you expect him to help around the house. That's one of the things that Kimberly mentioned. And since he's not helping around the house and you feel that you're doing far more than your share, it's because he's not meeting that expectation that makes you feel, or leads you to feel, I should say, leads you to feel that you're not being respected. Or is it because of the fact that you've read some articles somewhere that really good husbands do this, that, or the other, and he's not doing that, and therefore you feel you don't respect him anymore? Or could it even be that your friends are telling you, this is what your husband should do, and this is what he should be about, and all those kinds of things, and that would be the reason that you don't feel respect for him? You might be saying, well, what difference does it make, Dr. Beam? Well, here's the difference. You really need to make sure that the expectation that you have is reasonable. And if your buddies, your pals, your friends are telling you what the expectations should be of your husband, they may not be reasonable at all. Now, because she thinks it should occur, it means that you think it should occur. Or even if you read an article that really good husbands do this, 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 and this, and therefore my husband's not doing those things, and so I'm losing respect for him. So the first thing I would suggest is this: before you decide that you don't respect him, think about it in terms like this. He's not doing something that I'm expecting him to do, and that's why I feel this disrespect for him. He's not living up to my expectations. That's really what it's about. So first, evaluate your expectations. Are they fair? Are they reasonable? And where do they come from? Are they actually originating someplace else and being placed on you? If so, give up the ones that are unreasonable. Give up the expectations. I remember several years ago a woman being so unhappy with her husband because she said, my father always treated me as if I were a princess. And I think my husband should treat me like I'm a princess. Now, she actually said that not just to me, but a few people that were standing around, three of whom were licensed professional counselors. And I remember when we ended talking with her and she was away, the three of us were talking, or the four of us were talking, and the counselors were saying, you know, that smacks of narcissism. Now, we're not diagnosing her as a narcissist, but that smacks of narcissism. You want to be treated as if you're a princess? First of all, that's totally unrealistic. Secondly, how would you even measure it? All right, now, supposing that you get your expectations to be reasonable. I mean, I can reasonably expect this to occur. Say, both of you work outside the home, and you come back to the home and you're just as tired as he is and you need some help around the house, but he's not doing it. Man, it would be reasonable to say we need to split some of these things up. And so the next thing to do, once you decide if your expectations are reasonable, is to make them clear. Now listen to me clearly about the way to do this. If you do it in terms of, this is what you need to do, pal, you may not react positively to that. Or, I'm so disappointed because you don't do this. In other words, what I'm trying to say is don't phrase it in any way that appears to attack him or to degrade him or even to disrespect him in the way that you say it. Tone of voice, body language, the look on your face, anything else. If you really want this to work well so you can feel what you used to feel and feel, okay, my expectations are being met, you speak about them from the frame of reference of yourself. Like, you know, we both work outside the home, we get home, there's so much housework to do, and it's pretty well left up to me to do it, and I feel that sometimes maybe I'm just your maid instead of your wife. And I'm not trying to beat you up and say that you think that way about me, I'm telling you how I feel. When you speak from the reference of your own standpoint, how I feel, it's more likely that the other person will hear what you're saying as opposed to an attack. So maybe say it even nicer than the way I just phrased it. Just say, I feel unappreciated. I feel like most of the burden is mine and I really would appreciate some help. So if you do that and then a true conversation starts, where you can kind of lay out, well, okay, this is what I would appreciate you doing. What if we half it this way? You do this and I do that, etc. And we get all those kind of things done. What you want to do is to make it, if at all possible, a conversation. Explaining what it is that you want from your reference, your standpoint, being reasonable throughout it. And then, if he refuses to do that, nope, not doing it, you do your thing, I'll do mine. Now you've got some actual real reasons to feel disrespect for him because he's not treating you as if you have value and worth. Now that's a different question. We can deal with that in another way. But do you understand? First, make sure your expectations are reasonable. Then explain them to him from your own frame of reference, being careful not to attack him and disrespect him as you do. And when you lay those things out, say, will you do these for me, please? If he complies, you're going to be in great shape. If he doesn't comply, then you'll have to take it a step further than that, but that's not the question you asked me. So I'll only answer that if you tell me that's what you want me to answer.
No, that's really good. I had a good friend. I have a good friend. She's still a good friend of mine. And when my husband, for a quick background of people who may not know me, so my husband was in the military. He got out of the military about 1.5 years ago now. And when he first got out, it was a huge change in our marriage, in him, first of all, because he had identified as a soldier for so many years. And so he got out and he spent a lot of time just not doing anything. He was trying to figure out who he was, what he wanted to do with his life. But for me, being someone who he had always worked and, you know, the kind of person I am, I was very much like, you need to have a job. You need to go do something. You need to pick something. I don't care what it is. And so I felt like this woman, losing respect for my husband because he wasn't doing something I thought he ought to be doing. And so my good friend, I was telling her about this probably 6 months into this process, and she said, Kimberly, one of the things you need to be really mindful of is the way that you treat him. Because if you continue to treat him like you're not doing anything, I don't respect you, he's already not feeling that way.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And so you need to be extra mindful of, even though that's not how you feel, portraying that to him.
Right.
Of you are a great provider. You are, you have the ability to move forward and to do what you want to do. You are a successful person, because he wasn't feeling those things. So
Right.
I needed to show that to him.
Yeah, I was on the air once with Dave Ramsey. I was on his program with him. Some of you guys are probably familiar with Dave from the radio. And we were talking about this very same thing. Mm-hmm. It came up about, well, what about the guy that, he's out of work for whatever reason and he can't or doesn't even seem to try to get the next job. So the very thing you're describing. Mm-hmm. And I was explaining to Dave, the first thing to understand is that for many guys, what they do for a living becomes part of their identity and ego. And so to start with trying to understand him and what he was struggling through and what he was trying to figure out, rather than saying just get out there and get a job, it's like, help me understand what you're feeling right now. In other words, getting on his side of the table is what I call it, so that you're not adversaries, you're allies, which you figured out, your friend helped you figure out, and you did it very well. But that's an important thing to do. If you want to be treated in a way where you feel respected, if you want him to act in a way where you can respect him, then you first start by respecting him at whatever level he is.
Yeah.
Try to understand him, try to be on his side, and then help him get to where it is that you want him to go, as long as your expectations are reasonable.
Right.
And I keep going back to that because, as you know, Kimberly, we hear from so many people whose buddies have convinced them, your husband should be doing this, your wife should be doing that. They didn't have problems until their buddies intervened and told them what they're supposed to be doing.
Right.
Well, I don't need to elaborate. Okay?
Awesome. Good point. That's a great starting point. So depending on where they are, just to sum it all up, is treat your husband with respect. And this is the same principle for if the roles are reversed. It's just that it's more likely to see this in wives towards husbands. But even if it's a husband towards a wife, make sure you're starting with treating them with respect where they are right now, making sure your expectations are reasonable, and having the conversation with them from there and approaching it in a very level-headed manner when you have it, because if they feel like they're being attacked or they feel the need to defend themselves, then it's not going to turn out the way you want.
One last thing on that. When you're speaking from your frame of reference, this is what I feel, make sure that's really the way you do it. One of my really dear friends, we got into an argument one time and I said, but you're not understanding how I feel. I'm trying to understand how you feel. And it made him mad. It made him even angrier. I said, so speak in terms of how you feel. He said, I feel you're crazy. Okay. So
Not
don't do
quite
it like that.
It's not
Don't
the
do it
right
like
use
that.
of that.
No.
Not at all.